Welcome to Epoch News. I'm Tatiana Darzi. In an exclusive interview, the Epoch Times spoke with the chair of Hong Kong's pro-democracy Civic Party about how the Chinese Communist Party is taking advantage of the pandemic to further attack democracy and freedoms in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong's sitting chairman of the pro-democracy Civic Party, senior council member Alim Leong Ka-kit, told the Epoch Times in an exclusive interview how the Chinese Communist Party exploited the pandemic situation to encroach further on Hong Kong's democracy and freedom. Leong called on the people of the world to view Hong Kong as an example and stand up to the CCP.
Is that CCP is exploiting the situation to do bad things on Hong Kong people, thinking probably that the world would be too busy and otherwise engaged with fighting the coronavirus that they could not spare the attention to keep an eye on Hong Kong.
Leong said that the CCP wants to further infringe Hong Kong's democracy and freedom in 4 ways. 1. Making national security laws as soon as possible. 2. Using the accusation of sedition to arrest dissidents. 3. Canceling or postponing the September Legislative Council elections. 4. Exploit the recent incident of RTHK reporter Yvonne Tong's question about Taiwan membership to WHO advisor Bruce Aylward to crack down on this public broadcaster.
Another thing is that they started arresting people for sedition, which is something that we lawyers see to be a crime that aims at silencing dissidents and the dissent.
Hong Kongers have postponed the national security laws for 18 years now. Pro-democracy advocates did very well in November's district council elections and have defended their rights.
Everybody thought that probably the CCP and the Hong Kong administration would cancel that election, the district council elections, but it turned out that the Democrats won a landslide victory. We won 388 seats out of a total of 420, and we are now controlling 17 out of 18 district councils.
Leong said, what is common between Hong Kong and Taiwan is that we did not trust the WHO. We did not trust the CCP for the information that they provided, so the epidemic was kept under control.
I think it is this mentality and not trusting CCP or the WHO that put us in our present situation. Today's Hong Kong would be liberal democracies tomorrow. And therefore, if you are thinking that you are just helping Hong Kong, that is not quite accurate because you are at the same time helping yourselves.
Leong calls for international attention to Hong Kong as it is at the forefront of the battle between the CCP's autocracy and the democratic values of the free world.
If Hong Kong falls as a result of the world no longer paying enough attention to us during this time of the viral attack, then if Hong Kong falls, it may produce similar results in other countries.
Leong is a longtime proponent of Hong Kong democracy and rule of law. The former head of the Hong Kong Bar Association also served on the Hong Kong Legislative Council for 12 years. In 2014, he helped lead the Umbrella Movement and currently serves as chairman of the pro-democracy Civic Party.
A woman named Xu Nuo, who recently arrived from China, donated 6,000 face masks to a Los Angeles hospital. She hopes the public understands that this pandemic was caused by the CCP. She wants to help make the world aware that the Chinese people living under the regime are also suffering at the hands of the CCP.
Since the global CCP virus outbreak, mask gifting has become a way to express care among Chinese families. It is also a way to show support to healthcare workers. In this pandemic, through donating masks, a Chinese lady who recently came to the U.S. was able to realize the evil nature of the CCP. Xu Nuo from China had just arrived in the U.S. 3 months ago. She donated 6,000 medical masks to a hospital in Los Angeles. She hopes the public can understand that the Chinese are also victims of the CCP virus and that it was the CCP who caused this global pandemic.
If the Chinese government and the CCP had told the world the danger of this virus and cautioned its spread, I believe not so many innocent people would have lost their lives. This whole time, the Chinese government and the CCP have done such wrong. They are the cause of many people to lose their lives. I am very angry.
Xu Nuo said at the beginning of this epidemic, she once mailed masks to her family as well as a few Bibles in the package. Her family was harassed by the CCP because of this.
The Chinese police took my family to the station thinking, I am part of an anti-China religious group, and my family would be incited by me to be anti-China too. They took my father and put him in detention in a very poor, isolated environment, and we had to pay for all of it ourselves. My family are very elderly. This whole process caused them a lot of harm physically and mentally.
Xu Nuo said that the CCP slaughtered many lives and persecuted many religious groups in order to retain their power, so this plague made her realize the evil nature of the CCP. She hopes more people will understand and keep away from the CCP.
I hope more people can reflect on why we can't use Twitter, can't get on Facebook, and we don't have access to real information outside of China. Who is blocking us from seeing the truth? People died without knowing why. Maybe one day our family members could die from unknown reasons too. So I hope more people will stand up and think, how do we bring down such an anti-human government and this anti-human party?
A Chinese student who was studying abroad in Italy flew back to China hoping to escape getting infected with the CCP virus. However, he became infected with the virus during his time in quarantine in Shanghai. Then, the hotel where he was staying destroyed all of his belongings, including passport, visa, a receipt for permanent residency in Italy, and even euro in cash he was carrying.
April 28th, U.S. Senators Marco Rubio, Ben Cardin, Jim Risch, and Bob Menendez, and Representatives James McGovern, Chris Smith, Elliot Engel, and Michael McCall sent a letter urging Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to fully implement the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. The members expressed in the letter that Hong Kong's situation had been deteriorating in recent months, and the Chinese Communist Party had been continuing to accelerate its efforts to undermine Hong Kong's economy and the rule of law. On April 18th, the Hong Kong police arrested 15 democracy activists, including prominent lawyer Martin Lee, former member of Hong Kong Legislative Council Margaret Nung, founder of Apple Daily, a Hong Kong-based newspaper, Jimmy Lai, etc. Luo Hui-ning, the director of the liaison office, made a statement before the arrest, which outsiders conceive as an act to re-advocate for Article 23 legislation. The members wrote in a letter, CCP officials are advocating for Article 23 legislation, which would further restrict freedom and autonomy in service of Beijing's definition of national security. Hong Kong's future is of great importance to the United States and to the international community. Failing to address Beijing's efforts to erode Hong Kong's autonomy will undermine the freedom and human rights of its people, its valuable role as a partner to the United States, and its unique role in the international economy. Last year, President Trump signed the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. The passage of the bill requires the U.S. Secretary of State to issue an annual certification of Hong Kong's autonomy to justify special treatment afforded to Hong Kong by the U.S.
Canadian Member of Parliament Peter Kent is pushing to have the world hold the Chinese regime accountable for the pandemic. He believes that democracies have to work together and bring to the consciousness of those in power in Beijing that the world will no longer tolerate his belligerent, imperial, brutal human rights abusing member of the international community.
The CCP virus, commonly known as the novel coronavirus, first originated in Wuhan, China. Because of the Chinese Communist Party's cover-up and mishandling of the outbreak, the entire world is now suffering from this pandemic. Former Canadian Minister of Environment and Member of Parliament Peter Kent pointed out that this pandemic is pushing the international community to hold China accountable for the crisis and called on the international community to stop tolerating the evil deeds of the Chinese Communist regime.
Other countries that have been dishonestly dealt with China in the past, but who now have had the terrible consequences of the virus.
Presently, the international community continuously demands compensations from China, and former Canadian Member of the Parliament Peter Kent believed that this is the result of the lies told by the CCP.
We still need to have the world, the international community, the democracies come together and impose on the communist regime an accounting for what they have done. Finally, and again, the spark is the cruelty of this international tragedy, the COVID virus.
Kent believes that the democratic countries need to unite together to fight against the CCP, like they did when they fought against the Soviet Union in the Cold War. This is the way to dismantle an authoritarian regime.
In terms of international trade, if you do not respect a fair deal, then we will not trade with you. The international community has to ask questions in international fora, at the United Nations, at the World Health Organization. The democracies have to work together, bring to the consciousness of those in power in Beijing that the world will no longer tolerate this belligerent, imperial, brutal, human rights abusing member of the international community.
Being the minister shadow cabinet of the opposition party, Kent criticizes the Liberal Party for being lenient in dealing with the CCP. He believes that Canada needs to review its relationship with China and to implement the Magnitsky Act to sanction those Chinese officials who commit human rights abuses.
They say, oh, well, we have to maintain relations. They need to maintain relations by talking truth and talking honestly and not pandering to a bully.
A Chinese scholar recently published a 14-page lawsuit template to help families in Wuhan seek compensation for damages caused by the CCP virus. He created the template to help families avoid having to file a lawsuit in person and risk threats and harassment by CCP authorities.
The CCP virus pandemic has so far spread to 184 countries. A number of countries are taking action to hold the Chinese Communist regime accountable for covering up the outbreak. Victims in Hubei province, the epicenter of the pandemic, also wish to sue the government. Yang Jianqing, a Chinese visiting scholar in the United States who has been paying attention to livelihood issues in China, recently publicized a lawsuit template to help the victims' families. The 14-page template, called Legal Template for Novel Coronavirus Damage Compensation, along with a procedural guide for filing the lawsuit, was prepared by an 18-member attorney group from outside China.
The victims just need to fill out the template based on their specific situations. Several plaintiffs have completed the form, but they also need to provide additional details such as the names of the hospitals and the specific symptoms shown before the person died, etc. We have decided to leave out these details for now and get the cases filed first. They will mail the lawsuit documents. This is because if they visit a court in person, the court staff will likely reject their suit using any excuse they can come up with. However, if the case is filed by mail, the court has to acknowledge the acceptance of the letter as soon as it is delivered. The court will then feel pressure if it does not accept the case.
How many families are doing this now?
Families of 6 victims. 2 of them completed their own version of complaint several weeks ago. However, they hesitated to send it after they were written. We are not sure if they were threatened by the authorities or if they have concerns even before being threatened. Therefore, we decided that we should come up with a template to encourage more victims to file a lawsuit. By last weekend, 4 other families used our template to prepare the document.
As long as someone is working on such lawsuits, it will have a positive impact and serve as a role model.
Right. Actually, the local governments in Hubei province and Wuhan city are scared of these lawsuits. They will pressure and threaten whoever is taking action to file a lawsuit.
When your template is publicized, the plaintiffs may well fill it out and do the next steps themselves. So how are you involved in filing the lawsuits? Do you provide any guidance or assistance?
They can use our template and file the lawsuit themselves. If the victims' families get to see our template, they may want to file it on their own without asking for further help from us. We provided our contact information in the guide. If any of them need our help, we would certainly love to help. My main concern is that many of these victim families will be facing huge pressure. If they do it themselves by going to a court directly, or if they communicate with us on WeChat, which is monitored by the Chinese authorities, their local government will then threaten them not to file the lawsuit. We are making it easier for them to defend their rights by providing the template and guiding them through the process.
On one hand, if your group is the point of contact for all these plaintiffs, the Chinese government will make trouble for you. On the other hand, if the plaintiffs each try to do it on their own, they may not succeed.
Correct. It is impossible for them to get together physically when they are inside China. If we form a WeChat group, the group can be dispersed by the Chinese authority at any time. Anyway, it is very hard to provide legal help to this group of people.
You mentioned that one of the plaintiffs, Wu Suqin, was approached by his company leaders.
He told me that a company leader summoned him, saying that he made a political mistake and that the report Wu prepared was equivalent to attacking the state. Actually, Wu's statement was 2 simple paragraphs. He first described his illness and lack of treatment, then attributed the spread of the virus to the fact that ordinary citizens were kept in the dark. That was it. How could they claim this is political in nature? In Wu's case, it also involves a patient's basic rights to be informed. He sought treatment in a hospital, but was denied access to his medical records and the results of medical exams. As a matter of fact, what the authorities are trying to do is prevent people from presenting these materials in media interviews or using them to file lawsuits to defend their rights. Wu told me his company leader threatened him. The leader said, if Wu continues to seek justice from the hospital, he will either be subjected to administrative punishment or the company will refuse to reimburse his medical costs.
Have you yourself encountered any pressure or menace from the Chinese government?
Yes. A close friend of mine inside China was summoned by local state security on April 1st and April 18th. I asked him what they wanted. He told me he could not reveal details because he was forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. All he can tell me is that the state security staff was targeting me, and they asked a lot of questions about me.
The interview was conducted on April 21st by Hong Ning of the Chinese language Epoch Times.
40 medical staff from the Xiangyang Maternal and Child Health Hospital were dismissed from work last month. These medical professionals were asked to sign a voluntary resignation statement while promising not to pursue any compensation from the hospital. Of the 40 medical staff, 26 nurses had been to the new virus epicenter in Hubei, and they haven't received any bonuses for risking their lives.
40 medical staff at the Xianyang Maternal and Child Health Hospital of Shanxi Province were dismissed on April 30th. They were asked to sign a statement of voluntary resignation. Among them, 26 nurses had been to Hubei Province, the epicenter of the CCP virus, to fight the pandemic on the front line. They have not received any bonuses so far for risking their lives. Instead, what was waiting for them was a layoff disguised as voluntary resignation. A medical professional of the hospital released a video on May 1st, asking hospital authorities to give everyone a reasonable explanation.
On May 1st, Labor Day, a holiday that advocates for the protection of employees' rights and interests, 40 medical staff from the Xianyang Maternal and Child Health Hospital received a resignation application that they were asked to sign. We originally thought this outbreak might be a turning point for medical staff to get better wages and earn more respect, but the reality has taught us we were too naive. We were hailed as heroes for a short period of time, but that did not bring any fundamental change. Within my network, I know that some nurses who have worked on the front line have applied to change their status from temporary to permanent employees of the hospital. There are also frontline nurses whose only hope was to keep their jobs. We hope that Xianyang Maternal and Child Health Hospital will give us a reasonable explanation. Why did the hospital authorities decide to get rid of these medical staff who had been sent to the front line of the pandemic? I also hope that the so-called benefits we received when fighting the virus will not be the highest standard for us medical staff in this lifetime.
The statement of voluntary resignation forced them to claim that I want to resign due to personal reasons, and I promise that I will not pursue any compensation from the hospital with any excuse. The hospital authorities announced on their official blog on April 30th that the layoff was a decision made in November last year in response to shrinking operations, and the execution had been delayed because of the CCP virus pandemic. Any distorted report about our layoff will likely be used by foreign anti-China forces to incite public opinion, the hospital announcement wrote, as a warning message to anyone who attempts to question the layoffs. In the chat message she showed in her video, a nurse complained that they worked 12 hours a day from January 25th to late March, but their wage was based on 8 hours a day, and the extra bonus for working on the front line was only 100 yuan or $14.20 a month.
Martial arts students in Taipei are practicing boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu almost as they did before the coronavirus pandemic began, although they are now wearing a surgical mask during training. After 5 days without any new cases in Taiwan, students told Reuters they were confident the face mask will protect them during their high-intensity training on Thursday, April 30th. Taiwan has been comparatively successful in containing the spread of the virus, reporting to date 429 cases and 6 deaths in a population of around 24 million as of Friday, May 1st. With a major outbreak prevented so far, there are signs Taiwanese are gaining confidence that government prevention measures have worked. Sung Ming Yang, founder of a group of martial arts gyms in northern Taiwan, said his gyms have been running a mix of classes on location and online and have also reduced the class intensity for some students who come to the gym to train, as it can be more difficult to work out while wearing a mask. Boxing student Dylan Huang put a positive spin on the inconvenience of wearing a mask during training. After a while, you get used to it and start thinking that your heart and lung function will slowly increase along with gains in strength. When competing in the future, this will come in handy, he said. The following charts will show you the most recent numbers regarding the CCP virus pandemic. However, China and Iran are not included because their numbers are unverifiable. We've been mentioning the many losses in the world caused by the Chinese Communist Party's cover-up of the coronavirus. Till today, with over 3.5 million people infected, China is still defensive about independent international inquiry into the origin and spread of the coronavirus. The Epoch Times has initiated a global Sign the Petition campaign calling for investigating, condemning, and rejecting the CCP. We believe that investigating and exposing the truth is the only way that we can remain safe. Let's take action. Sign the petition at ccpvirustruth.com. That's all for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this program with friends and family to keep them informed about the latest news and updates. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.